there's a lot of kind of a guerrilla warfare in the White House with different fractions trying to put some different spin on the Alaska deal. It looks like there is also kind of guerrilla warfare in the Kremlin as well. We've heard in a couple of days various rumors of senior officials saying that the war should be stopped and proposing some kind of a compromise. We know also that Z bloggers have a sort of feel on the ground of what's going on, and for them a temporary or unconditional ceasefire will be the worst case scenario. I think for Ukraine that will probably be the best case scenario, an unconditional temporary / semi-permanent ceasefire probably will be the best thing for Ukraine if it happens. But I'm sure Vladimir Putin has a probably a couple of aces up his sleeve to play Donald Trump and to probably go for the minimum kind of agreement, which I presume will be sort of air and sea truce, which is more favorable probably to the Russians than to Ukrainians, given that Ukrainians have been hitting Russian oil refineries and also a lot of military weapon factories for last week, really, really successfully, with a lot of damage being caused. So at the moment, it looks like the air and sea truce is not really in Ukraine's favor, but probably that is the minimum that Putin will have to offer Donald Trump for the meeting, because otherwise that meeting will be a total disaster.
Yeah, and even just last night we saw another airstrike by Ukraine or drone strike on a Russian oil refinery. There is clearly some benefit to Ukraine in being able to continue an air war, but it will presumably also benefit them that there may not then be these overnight strikes on major cities like Kiev if the Ukrainians, if Trump does agree with Putin to have an air ceasefire, as it were.
I think, we can discuss whether deliberate, indiscriminate bombardment of civilian areas causes panic or strengthens the resolve. Right? We have a lot of talk about the Blitz spirit, not kind of breaking the British resolve back in the day, although it was about 40 odd days campaign. This has been going on for now 3.5 years. Definitely a sort of ceasefire on the air probably would help Ukrainian local, the civilian population to kind of ease a little bit, because they're living in fear at the moment of dying every moment, given that the new improved Shahid Garan drones can fly at 550 kilometers an hour and can drop on you really fast, and there is hardly anything that Ukrainians can do to stop them, and hence there is a much enhanced risk of you dying at home or not being able to reach the subway underground station on time, as my parents are doing currently in Kiev. So probably an air and sea truce may be of some benefit, although of course we know that Ukrainian hits on the oil refineries has caused quite a panic in terms of petrol prices in Russia, which are rising quite fast. And this is also the harvest season in which there is enhanced, obviously, demand for oil, for petrol and diesel and all other products. So I think the Ukrainian airstrikes are causing a lot of damage to Russians, but I presume Ukrainian leadership would agree on having an air and sea truce if it comes to that. If that's the only offer that comes from Alaska, probably they will have to take it, given that it's just still better than nothing.
And we talked about the back and forth inside the White House about what form this meeting should take. We've heard that Trump is still considering whether or not Zelensky should come to Alaska. Do you think there is still a chance that Zelensky will be at the meeting, and how bad does it look for Europe if he's not?
I would be extremely surprised. I would be totally surprised if Vladimir Putin would agree to meet President Zelensky, not in the Kremlin and not on his turf and not on his terms. Because we know very well he is not capable of withstanding pressure or being fast on his feet. I'm not saying that President Zelensky was fast on his feet during his scandalous meeting at the White House, but definitely President Putin would melt under pressure like that. So I'm sure if there is there's a slim chance, maybe 5% of a trilateral meeting in Alaska, it will be extremely choreographed. It probably will be just statements to the media. Or three of them will read out a 5-page statement, and that will be it. I think that's probably, I would say, the most of the least likely scenario, that's the most likely one.
And we talk about the concessions the US has made almost on behalf of Ukraine. Is this meeting itself something of a concession? Because does this work to almost start to reset Russia's position as a pariah state on the world stage?
I totally agree with you. I think it's a massive concession to Putin for not exactly, unknown reasons to us, because from a pariah, from somebody who was unshakable, not handshakable, until recently, he's managed to come back in 3.5 years, and now he's going to have a face-to-face meeting with the most powerful leader of the world. That is obviously something that Putin really, really wanted. And that's why he doesn't want Zelensky to come in and spoil the party of one-to-one, almost equal meeting between the superpowers, as Putin believes he is leading one of those. So that is quite a concern. And I think that concern is shared by a lot of nations across Europe. We've just heard a statement by the Baltic and Nordic nations, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland have made a statement that no agreement should be done without Ukraine. The territorial sovereignty and territorial integrity of any country should be obeyed. And also Europe, no borders can be changed by force in Europe. So it's not just Ukraine who's anxious. It's obviously a lot of its allies and also its neighbors are worried about that. And it's very unpredictable as Donald Trump is. So we don't really know what's going to happen. But I presume Putin will have to give something, because otherwise Donald Trump will look really humiliated. And given that he wants to fill the media time with discussion of Alaska, not of Epstein files, of pedophile ring, he cannot come as a loser out of that.
Yeah, and I'd like to ask more about that, Professor Mykhnenko. Who needs an agreement to come out of this more, Trump or Putin? And how bad will it be for each of those two men if there isn't some sort of real conclusive agreement made on Friday?
Difficult to say. We all know that Putin is under pressure at home. The economy is doing pretty badly. A lot of his internal officials are secretly or privately saying that probably we need to make a deal with Putin. I think a lot of people think that he was very foolish to reject Donald Trump's extremely generous deal a couple of months ago, which gave away all of the territories of Ukraine under occupation, which gave away Crimea, which gave away NATO membership for Ukraine. It was an extremely generous deal that Trump offered, and Putin refused that. So anything coming now will be less generous to Putin. But because I think the situation at home is becoming a little bit worried for him, that is why he's probably considering that it's better to go to Alaska to kind of pretend to be willing to compromise and at least to postpone some extra sanctions that may be coming. So I think Putin does need to go and give something in return to kind of ease some sort of the sanction regime, or at least not to deteriorate his situation even further. Donald Trump, probably can live without anything apart from obviously humiliation of not getting anything out. But he can lash out at Putin later on, right, and say, "Well, I tried, and these people are just insane, and hence it's not my fault." So I think Donald Trump can always walk away without really losing that much, whereas Putin going again without any deal with Donald Trump, I think his legitimacy in the Kremlin, in Moscow itself, will be under question, because obviously people are thinking that he is a mastermind of incredible 4D chess, which is not. So he needs to play some kind of game.
You've been watching or listening to Frontline for Times Radio with me, Louis Sykes. For more on the war in Ukraine, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for a membership, or you can hear all the latest news and analysis on Times Radio or read it at thetimes.com. And remember, we are in both podcast and video form. You can find us on your favourite podcast platform. It's Times Radio's Frontline, or you can watch us on Times Radio's YouTube channel. Thanks very much. Goodbye.